good way to get the most value out of your machines is to transmogrify them into others. So today, I'm going to turn my lathe into a disc sander. I'm doing a small production run of some stuff, and having a disc sander, a big disc where I can put sandpaper on to speed up that process, would be a real time saver for me right now. But hey, I don't have the money to buy one of those big 16-inch standing machines. I'm not even sure people make them anymore, but they are infinitely useful if you have access to one. And for turning, there's lots of times where I want to flatten the bottom of a bowl or the rim of a green turn bowl so it'll look a little bit more nice. And this is a situation where I can use the fact that all the lathe does is spin to its advantage and turn it into a disc sander. But because I want it to be dead flat, I'm going to start off with one of the few cases I find MDF to be an advantage. I picked up this piece at the hobby section of one of the big box stores. It's a 3/4 inch MDF, and I think it's only like $6 or $7, not much. And I'm just going to, the big lathe I have has an 8-inch throw, so if I go just a little bit under 8 inches, maybe I can get a couple smaller discs that I can put on my small lathe too. So using a set of dividers, just find the closest spot to the corner that I can get and still get my 16-inch round. There we go. Give me a center point and then just scratch the circle. With those cut out, it's just a matter of finding a way to mount it to your lathe to keep it flat and secure. And pretty much every lathe comes with these little faceplate doodads in various sizes, and you can, not very many people use them, so you can pick them up on the used market really inexpensively, and they're not that much money to begin with if you wanted to just buy new. They make them in fancy aluminum and stuff like that. For our application though, steel is just fine. So these faceplates are simply mounted with screws, and you want to make sure you have nothing on this surface right here that will cause it to tilt one way or the other, and you want to make sure your surface is smooth here. And because this is MDF, you're probably going to want to pre-drill the holes because, you know, basically it's just thick paper. You can use a center point of your dividers to center your faceplate, and if you can't quite see it, the trick would be to just use a little bit of chalk, and it'll kind of raise up the spot. And there you go. Then mark out where you want all your screws to go. It is advisable always when you're using a faceplate to use as many screws as possible. That will give you the strongest bite. Now, a quick word on screws. If you are doing a big heavy bowl, which, you know, that's where these kinds of faceplates are really great at, something really offset where there's a lot of torque and vibration, offset balance and stuff like that, don't use the big box store screws. I mean, they just aren't hardened properly. Go to a place like Fastenal or something like that that specializes in screws and buy a nice box that will last you, you know, 5 or 6 years of screws to be used with a face plate. Because the worst thing you can happen was have something big and heavy break off while you're spinning it. Now this MDF, it's going to be very light, it's going to be very balanced, so I'm not too worried about just using the big box store screws. You do everything right, it's going to be dead flat on the face. So now let's just round over this section to make a perfect balance and add some sandpaper. Now this edge right here, I mean, MDF is just basically compressed paper. It is going to fray with just the moisture in the air. So I always recommend just putting a very, very light coat. If you put a heavy coat, it's going to soak into it and swell it. But just a light pass of shellac. It just kind of keeps those fibers from just getting nasty. Next up is just to attach the sandpaper. Now I misbought some of these belt sanders, so I'm going to use them up, but I do suggest that you use some cloth back, something that you would use on a belt sander. Now you can buy discs with adhesive backs to just swap on them at most woodworking stores, but hey, I don't have them and these are readily available. Now a lot of people will reuse these, but to me it's, you know, it's what, $3 worth of MDF, and this will last me months and months and months of use. So I'm just going to put a single grit on one. If I need another grit, I'll just make another one. It's no big deal, and you can interchange them. Just leave that little faceplate on the back. So to attach it, I'm going to use some 3N general adhesive, put a pretty heavy coat on, and then just start attaching the sandpaper. Trim off the excess, but save it because you can use it on the lathe. So let's see how it works. Not bad. And I do know that a lot of people that do this kind of design, they'll actually build a box. They'll come up to about right there, the midway point, and you can attach a shop vac to it, and it'll suck all the sawdust as it comes down below. So it sands down and goes out there. So, if you ever need a new tool, and you've got a bunch of stuff that you might not use that much, maybe a little mini lathe in the corner, hey, think about transmogrifying it. So for today's bonus, I'd like to talk about rude mechanical press. But before we do that one, if you enjoyed this video, if you got something out of it, please do me a favor. Like, favorite, subscribe, do all those social medias. And the best thing you could do is tell a friend. Or visit my website, wortheffort.com, where not only do I have a lot of swag, but I have some upcoming shop tools that are coming out. All those sales really do help subsidize the time I put into these videos. Now, Megan Fitzpatrick, the old editor at Popular Woodworking Magazine, is opening up a new publishing house. She's calling it her Rude Mechanical Press, based off of the name of her blog. And I like the direction she's going, because she's bringing back a lot of the old books that have been out of print that are kind of a good accessory to a lot of the stuff that's being printed in other companies and that's already out there. It goes into a little bit more detail, offers you a different explanation of stuff like that. Her first book is coming out, and it's Nicholson's The Mechanic's Companion, and it's going to be a great accessory to a lot of the other stuff we have out there. She's got a new website out and with an email list, and it's going to be going into print fairly quickly, it looks like. So I'm kind of excited about this whole different avenue, the different direction that she's going with her publishing company compared to others. Bringing back the stuff that we basically lost. So go check it out. Rude Mechanical Press, Megan Fitzpatrick's new book publishing company.